Twilight's Nightmare, Chapter 23, Part 3. A Friendly Talk. Applejack sat there, and the whole situation was unlike anything that she had to deal with before. This Twilight, her Twilight, the Twilight all of them have been spending all of these years living with, wasn't the original. Her eyes tracked Princess Celestia as Cadence led her into the meeting room. In a way, she was a copy, same as the mirror clones, but made with Celestia's magic. If Celestia had not admitted it right in front of her, Applejack wouldn't have believed it. However, she was also not lying about saying it was the only way to save Twilight. There was a lot of pain between the two princesses, that much was clear. As soon as the door closed on the meeting room, Rainbow Dash rushed to the door, pressing her ear to it. She then threw her hooves up in annoyance.
They're using that sound bubble again. Oh, bubbles! I like bubbles.
Pinky said. Giving Pinky a sideways glance, Rainbow Dash shakes her head.
Okay. Anyways, I really don't like how this is going,
she said with frustration.
I mean, seriously, who does that to some pony? Slicing and dicing their soul? I know I wouldn't want that done to me.
Applejack looked slightly miffed at the outburst.
No, hold up, Akasha, a minute. Celestia already told us it was to save her life. She didn't know any other way to save her. Be that as it may, darling, do we really know that it is true?
Rarity said, her face showing that she didn't want her friends fighting. Applejack nods her head.
I do know that she at least believes it to be true. Now, I can't say one way or another whether there were other options, though. I don't really know anything about what's possible with y'all's horns.
Rainbow seemed to be taken aback for a moment.
So, you really believe that it was an emergency surgery?
Fluttershy spoke up.
I know that if I were in her position, I wouldn't have wanted one of my animals to die. I would do surgery if possible to save them.
Rainbow's agitation faded for a moment.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that, but we're not talking about stitching some pony back up after they get a cut. She went and basically created a Frankenmare soul out of the children of the original Twilight. That just doesn't feel right. I mean, you don't go and kill 5 other fools to save one. You don't even do that if 6 fools are dying. Actually, there are organ transplants, so we kind of do,
Fluttershy said. A slight look of horror was on Rainbow's face.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's kind of freaky.
Applejack raised her voice slightly.
Alright girls, listen. If she didn't do what she did, then we wouldn't have Twilight at all. That much I know. Now what we do have is at least the Twilight that we do know. The only thing that we can really do for her is just be there. That's too bad that the old Twilight never got to come to any of our parties, but isn't the new Twilight still our friend?
Pinky said, doing her best to look on the bright side, even now.
Of course Twilight's still our friend,
Rainbow stated, wings flaring.
Darlings, where would the world be without Twilight? Nightmare Moon, Discord, Starlight, and Tarek, just think of the mess that they would have made of things.
Rarity said in her most serious tone.
So you think that she did the right thing?
Rainbow accused.
Well, what do you think any of us could have done against them without Twilight, without the elements?
Rainbow bristled.
We could have taken them.
Applejack thought back to all of their adventures, all the times that they've saved Equestria, and all the times that Twilight had led them, guided them, helped them. She remembered all the trouble that her stubborn streak caused before Twilight got her to accept help, when Twilight had brought them back to their senses after Discord had messed with their minds.
The world needed Twilight,
she thought. Applejack looked at Rainbow.
You would give a mock good try, but do you really think you could win Sugar Cube?
She could see that her friend wanted to say yes, but the lessons that she'd learned had caused her to hold her tongue. Rainbow looked down, the look on her face admitting defeat. Even I don't remember the original Twilight. I was too young when it happened, but I think Shining Armor would remember though. Spike piped up. That being said, I don't think it's really the question that you guys are getting at. Fluttershy piped up.
Spike is right. It isn't is she our friend. It's how we feel about what happened to her, and how that changes what we feel about Celestia. I think that maybe what Celestia did was needed, but what she didn't do is where she was in grave error.
She sees the looks of confusion on her friends' faces, and continues.
She didn't tell Twilight, and she should have. Had she known then, she wouldn't be mad at Celestia for messing with her minds now.
Several glances among the gathered friends showed that they were considering her words, and it took all 5 seconds for them to agree. Nodding, Applejack said.
Then, if we're gonna help heal the rift between them, then we need to get Celestia to see that she was in error and wants to make things right by her.
Seeing no disagreement from the others, she continued.
Thing is, with as old as she is, she might be just a tad resistant to change. Not that I don't have my own experience with that, I'm sure she thinks that she's well justified in her actions, and honestly, she might be. Even if it doesn't sit right with us emotionally, but talks need to be had, or the rift will never heal. So, what do you guys say? Have a sit down with our solar princess?
Rainbow looked excited at the prospect of settling things.
Yeah, that sounds good. We can just ambush her on our way out. Really, Rainbow? We wouldn't be pouncing on her, just insisting that we sit down and talk,
said Rarity. Sometime later, Applejack sat, calmly waiting. There were things that she could do on the farm, but being here for Twilight was way more important. The conversation was over, and now each of her friends were killing time in their own way. Rainbow was a ball of relentless worry, constantly in motion. Rarity was sketching new designs. Taking a glance, Applejack could see some of them were for Little Star. Pinkie Pie kept running off and returning. Last time she came back with a tray of snacks, and this time she now had a board game set up. As always, her friend was so random. Fluttershy just lay still, remained concealing her thoughts from the rest of the world. The hum of a magical aura announced that finally the doors to the meeting room opened. Applejack looked to them, noticing in the corner of her eyes how Rainbow was now hovering, her endless flying back and forth pausing. Cadence left the room first, smiling. She nodded warmly to Applejack and the rest of the elements before turning down a hall and heading deeper into the castle. Less than a minute later, Celestia left the room, turned towards the elements, and made her way towards the exit. Rainbow looked into the room where Twilight sat, snuggled under Luna's wing. Applejack could see Twilight's eyes tracking Celestia for a moment, before her magenta aura closed the door blocking Rainbow's attempt to enter, who grumbled in annoyance. Applejack got to her hooves and blocked Celestia's path.
Princess, we need to talk,
she said in a firm tone.
Certainly. About Twilight, I would assume.
Celestia's tone was calm and friendly as she moved to gracefully settle down next to the rest of the elements. In a blur, Rainbow was muzzle to muzzle with Celestia.
What the hey did you do to Twilight?
Rarity's reproachful glance gave Rainbow enough of a pause to allow the princess to answer. Celestia took a breath.
As much as it saddens me, it was truly the only viable way to save any of her from what was very likely an almost successful assassination.
Rainbow almost dropped from the air. Almost. Applejack could feel the eyes of her friends upon her. She nodded, confirming that there were no lies hidden there.
Only viable? What other options were there?
She thought still, with some suspicion. She remembered that Twilight had accused Celestia of creating her as a tool.
Who would try and assassinate a little filly?
Fluttershy asked, looks of horror flashing across the elements' faces. Celestia's calming voice answered.
There are many threats to Equestria that would have preferred if the elements of harmony were never restored. Only viable option? That implies that there were other ways, so what other ways were there?
Asked Applejack.
Few that would barely have had a chance of saving anything of who Twilight was. I used the one that would save most of who Twilight was, and the pieces that she was rendered into would have disintegrated in days at most, seconds at worst.
She paused, a sadness crossing her features.
And it was the only way that would have protected Equestria.
Again, Applejack knew that Celestia was speaking the truth. Rarity seemed to grimly accept its necessity, and Pinkie's mane deflated slightly at seeing Celestia sad. Fluttershy was surprisingly calm.
Fine, why the buck didn't you tell her? If you had then, she wouldn't be an emotional wreck right now, and sitting in that room, hating you.
Rainbow Dash almost yelled.
Now calm down a bit, Sugar Cube, let her talk.
Applejack admonished.
Thank you, Applejack,
Celestia said, bowing her head in thanks, before continuing in a somber tone.
I had planned to. After she had a chance of living as close to a normal life as possible, I wanted to let her live without that hanging over her head, at least for a while. I had things set in motion for her to find out in about 10 years. Wait, 10 years from now? You should have told her 5 years ago!
Rainbow said, more incensed now than she was before.
To what end? For her to know that she wasn't completely whole? To know that she is a prime target for assassination, having her completely worrying about that? You saw how she was when she thought that she was behind on friendship reports. Can you imagine what she would have been like if she had potential assassinations to look out for? How could she have been expected to make friends if she was always fearing for her life like that?
Said Celestia. Rainbow just looked at her with narrowed eyes for a moment.
She was an alicorn 5 years ago. She wouldn't have been nearly as vulnerable as she was when she was a unicorn. Besides, she would have gotten over that with our help. We were already her friends, and that's besides the point anyways. How is that all besides the point? Am I missing something here?
Questioned Celestia.
Yeah, apparently you are.
The frustration on Rainbow Dash's face still showed.
It doesn't matter what reasons you had not to tell her. By your own laws, on life-saving procedures, she had the right to know. That isn't something a doctor can withhold from a patient.
Rainbow pressed closer to Celestia.
It was something done to her without her consent. Yeah, it saved her life, but by your own law that you put in place, you were obligated to tell her. I can understand waiting until she's knowledgeable enough to understand, but you can't say that as an alicorn. She didn't know enough to understand.
Celestia held up a hoof-pausing Rainbow, who folded her forelegs impatiently.
I told Twilight's family everything that they were allowed to know by law. that Twilight was in a magical incident and I had to save her life. That she had learned forbidden magic and the knowledge that had to be sealed away. If the seals failed, then by law, she would have been imprisoned or banished, 2 things that I did not want to happen to Twilight. Okay, fine, that validates not telling her while she was a unicorn, but all those restrictions vanished when she became an alicorn though. The day that she ascended, you were still legally, and at least in my opinion, morally obligated to tell her. And had you, she wouldn't be in there, still hating you for what you did to her.
Rainbow said, looking around and noting that all of her friends were nodding in agreement with her sentiment.
And that's why I was going to tell her when she had settled into her new role. I honestly believe that she would have been happier in the long run without that knowledge had recent events not happened.
Celestia stated with honest regret.
That being said, I understand your point about the legal side, and your point that if I had, she wouldn't be in the emotional state that she's in right now.
Celestia said, and she lowered her head.
So how do we proceed from here? I would sincerely appreciate any help in making things right with Twilight. Well, I reckon that you should write a friendship report.
Applejack answered, with a friendly smirk on her face. Seems like things are finally looking up. Granted, it's just plans, but it's a good start either way. Now let's get on to our super prepared donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coldhard, J Tinman, Darkside, Ponyman, and Gauntlet. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Dospo, Delta Omega, Jack Cadge, Runescythe9852, Hansa Norman, Dash of Evergreen, Ridney Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Talrasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ron and Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Skyochia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitsune 9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Madman Stan, Tim Bob, Starlight Glimmer, Lightning Blitz, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Alex F, Rainbow Dash, Tioka Anderson, TV Killer, John Becker, Leon Reynolds, Raven Speedster, Zach Rakau, Mr. ECU, Edgar Garcia, One Kingdom 1, Nisarusan, Vazuri, Dyslexic Character Sheets, Just a Random Boy, Hodrick Plincart, A Crazy Person, Ponyman365, Neapolitan, 6 of 9, Shyfire, Stamp, and Diane Basseri. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.